Family, this is giving you something to talk about, or just a live TV as I like to call it. I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. Today we're going to be talking about taking care of your health now and not waiting until there is an issue. We notice that a lot of people will wait until there's an actual issue before they start taking care of themselves, and it's really not a healthy thing to do. So we're going to be delving into that. Our sponsor today is the Phoenix Identity. It's time to make sure that you matter most to yourself. Stop putting everything to the side that you need to start focusing on, and put your emotional, mental, and physical health first today. So it's never too early to start taking care of yourself. Go and set up a clarity session with them and learn how you can do just that. So that is that. I'm going to hand it over to our guest speaker today. Barbara, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, and thank you for having me. My name is Barbara Walsh. I'm a board-certified master health coach. I actually overcame breast cancer naturally 7 years ago. No chemo, no radiation, no surgery. And that actually sparked a change in my life. Talk about not doing something till you are faced with a crisis, but that actually sparked a whole change in my life. And because of that, I became a board-certified master health coach. And that's what I do. I help women to create a whole metabolic revolution in their bodies so that way they can, lose weight, feel great, turn their health around. And so that way they can avoid being sidelined by a breast cancer diagnosis like I was.
Absolutely. There are things that obviously we can't avoid that just happen. And I do know that, sometimes they're coinciding with the decisions that we're making or the things that we're putting into or around our body. Absolutely. There are times that we can't control these things. So just to preface this video by saying that, there are some things that are out of our control at the time. But the amount of people that I've talked to, including yourself, who have had cancer diagnosis or something equally as or similarly as devastating as cancer, and it changes their life. 99% of the people that I've pre-interviewed for the show have said it changed my life for the better. And that's great. And I love that happens. But what if we could do that prior to? What if we could change our lives and start making those decisions, start making those or taking those actions to create a happy, healthy life before we absolutely have to, or are most people just like me and like the time crunch?
Well, I think that's true. I mean, I was always like that. I was never like a poster child for making healthy choices or anything like that. I thought I was healthy. I thought I did everything right. I thought I was eating right. I thought I knew. But after facing that diagnosis, it did also for me change my life for the better, because after I got past the terror of it, I'm not going to say it wasn't scary, scariest thing you will ever hear or have to face. But after I got past that point, it made me take a look at what was going on in my body. And what I discovered from that is that, there were red flags going off in my body for many years prior to that. And what's interesting is that there are a lot of symptomatic things that could be happening in the body when you are immunologically challenged, let's just say, but you may not realize that they're all actually interconnected. And I think that was a big revelation for me, was learning to understand more about my body, understanding, how it's actually designed for healing. That's the way we're made. Otherwise, if we didn't have healing built into our bodies, every time we went out and came in contact with a germ or we cut ourselves, we would just die because we would have no defenses. But we're built for that. The key, though, is supporting that process. Now, just like anything, it's always easier to maintain something than it is to have to repair it. Like, let's take a car, for example. Like, if you have an amazing car, like, let's just imagine you get the car of your dreams. I mean, whatever that looks like to you. I mean, I have one in my mind, what would be the car of my dreams, something I could probably never afford. But let's just say miraculously you could afford this car. I would bet you would baby that thing. I would bet that you would put the best fuel in that car. I bet that you would, if you could, keep it in a garage to protect it from the elements. I would bet that you would wash it and wax it pretty regularly. And more than that, I bet that you would give it regular maintenance. You would check to make sure that all your fluids were balanced. You would give it that very expensive gas, the highest end of the gas, because that's what's recommended, because you want that vehicle to perform the way it's been promised to perform. And you want it to last you, right, for a long time. So that way you can enjoy driving it, right? And I think that that's a parallel that many people can relate to. Weirdly enough, there's no machine that you're ever going to have or buy that's going to be more valuable than the machine of your body that you live in every day. And unfortunately, most people don't give the body the maintenance, the care, the upkeep that they would a car. And so that's something I talked with my clients a lot about, because it's a little bit of a mind shift, and especially as women, because women are always stretched so thinly at every end. I mean, we might have husbands or partners. We might be married. We might have children. We work. Many of us today, especially since the whole COVID revolution about, how that's changed the way that we work. Many people even have their own businesses. And then like, if you are a woman, you also have the lovely added layer of having to take care of your home, do the laundry, make the meals, go do the food shopping, so it's like, it's this constant thing. And most women, if you tell them, you're going to put your children and your family first, they're with it. And if it means sacrificing themselves, that's fine. They always figure, I'll have time for myself later. So it's like a little bit of a shift, because when we're not fueling our beautiful car of our body with the best fuel, we will come to a point down the line where, we probably will break down. If we don't put gas in it, we're going to run out of gas. If we don't keep fluids in it, eventually we're going to have malfunctioning, and the body is the same. And the thing is, we're always so busy doing for other people. We don't do anything for ourselves because we feel like it's selfish. But then weirdly, we could end up sidelining ourselves, and then we're not able to be there for all the people that love us, need us, and depend on us, And so I think that's like the shift that we all have to go through. And as you were saying that, most people come to this shift when they're faced with a crisis. The doctor hands you some kind of diagnosis, some kind of chronic illness. Could be cancer, could be diabetes, could be heart disease, it could be Alzheimer's, it could be a number of these things. And we really don't have to wait to get to that point. Like, just like that car, we could start maintaining it now. We could start really, making sure that engine is purring perfectly now, so that we don't have to worry about having that diagnosis later on.
Yep. That's like using the vehicle, right? I know what my dream car, so if anybody's watching, let us know what your dream car is. But my dream car is roughly about $300,000.
There you go.
So even more in the US. And it is limited edition. There's like 3,000 made worldwide. And it's a performance vehicle. So it does require, my husband's also a mechanic. So I know engines and I know cars, and I'm very big car community in Manitoba. And so that analogy works perfectly, because it is true. And if you have a beautiful car and you let that car just sit there, and you're not taking care of it, you're not driving it, you're not, utilizing it, that too creates damage. Right? Because it won't run. It
Sure.
won't, right? So like muscle use. And when we're talking about taking care of your body, this isn't just one thing. It's not just nutrition, right? That's your gas, that's your fuel and your energy, right? But we're talking mental, emotional, energetically. If you run a car constantly all day 24/7, that car's going to break down because it has no time to settle. It has no time to rest and relax, right? And the same goes for your body. So there are a lot of different things that we as individuals need to focus on. Our emotional health. Our emotional health and our mental health go hand in hand. They feed off of each other. And both of those will impact your body health. If you are living in a state of, never mind, I'm going to backtrack that. If anybody have your worst day, something that triggered you really severely, maybe you've, a day that you've lost somebody that you cared about, or a diagnosis or something along those lines, a very heavy emotional day. By the end of that day, you are exhausted. You are drained. You're exhausted. You have no energy, no mental, emotional, you have no capacity left. You are just this husk and shell that has no energy to do anything, right, at the end of that day. So you think about how damaging and heavy emotions, negative emotions, they're a part of life. Learning how to control them. That's why I created my Rockstar method, learning how to control them, acknowledge them, own them, and work through them. That helps them move through really, really easily and really quickly. You can move through those emotions. But when you sit in those emotions, that creates so much dis-ease in your body because it's eating away. Like it's insanity how much your brain health, your physical health, your energetic health, your gut health is impacted by those heavy negative emotions, by the traumas, by everything that you're still, holding on to or living to. So your mental health and your emotional health are just as important as your nutritional health and your energetic health. And so it's like a holistic all-in-one approach to say you need to take care of you.
Yeah. Yep. And it goes back to, what we were saying earlier, is that everything is connected. I think that that's a something that we probably take for granted, but everything really is connected. One thing that that happens to you, whether it's physically, emotionally, if it's stress related, it's going to have an impact somewhere else in your body. You just may not make that connection, but it definitely impacts everything. And I think that that's like the biggest area where we can affect change, honestly, is by understanding that and then getting to the heart of some of the issues. Like, in my case, I had to understand, get a big understanding about what the immune system is and how it's actually impacted by all these things, impacted by stress, impacted by the foods that I was eating or wasn't eating, impacted by whether or not I chose to move my body at all, impacted by just, how I moved through my days and whether I effectively was managing stress. Because I think that's another thing I never really understood prior, that, how impactful stress is. I mean, you always hear about it, stress can make you sick, and it absolutely can, because it's that whole dynamic of the body being prepared to protect you from imminent danger. But the body, it doesn't discern, whether you're going to be hit by a car or whether you are so stressed out in your head that you are visualizing the worst possible outcome of something. The body responds to both of those stresses the same exact way. And so that's a huge game changer when you can get a revelation of that, because I think most people don't realize how impacted they are by stress, just really by their, their thought processes that go through the day. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And how many people have we talked to, or have we interviewed or heard from, whether that's friends, family, media, shows like this? How many have we heard that, there is that stress, there is that stressor right before you're diagnosed with something, or you have an extreme traumatic event. Oh, I was stressed out, or, oh, I was feeling this way, or, oh, I was feeling that way, or, I've been carrying this for so long. Now, I want people to look at all the success stories. Look at all the success stories like Barbara's. right? How many of those start with, I had this really traumatic event and I healed and I put myself first? And how many of those stories do we hear about? We look at, and I've said this one before, Jim Carrey, and it goes hand in hand. Jim Carrey, before he became a world-renowned star, wrote himself $100,000 check and said, I will make this money. And he was broke, right? And in essence, just about homeless. And he turned around and he had faith in himself. He had faith in himself, right? He put himself first. He believed in himself. He had the confidence and he took the action. There are so many things we don't realize about our journeys. One of the things that I asked myself a few months ago was, what do kids need? And I was doing an episode on children, and I have 4 of my own. And when I first started coaching, my oldest, who was 13 at the time, was going through some really deep emotional struggles. And that's like the peak time where kids kind of are trying to figure out who they are, what they're into, where they're going, right? And it's a very stressful time for kids. And so I was thinking back to that time and I said, what do kids need to know? Right? Because we're talking about, don't wait for a diagnosis. It's never too early to start either.
That's right.
Never too early and never too late. So I asked myself, I said, so what do kids need to know to be happy and healthy, to be the best version of themselves? What do they need to know? And in essence, it's not just kids, it's adults too, because how many of us don't know these things that I'm about to say? And it's the reason why I created the SMARTER method. And the SMARTER method is an acronym, and it's security, but not in the outside world, security in who you are, right? When we know who we are, it kind of gives us that better ability to love and support ourselves and put ourselves first. Then maturity in our mindset, accountability for our actions, responsibility for our reactions, trust in ourselves, embracing our experiences, and the readiness to do something about it. And when you put all of those things together, you get like that perfect recipe of, wanting to be the best version of yourself. You eat better, you take better care of yourself, you go out and do things that are going to change your life, whether that's just walking around the block, whether that's, signing up for a class, whether that's, engaging with family, or there are so many opportunities that we have, and they don't have to be really big, grand gestures, right? It could be as simple and one thing at a time. I always encourage people, baby steps, do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
It could be just picking something and going, you know what, I'm going to slow down on my Pepsi intake, or I'm going to switch from smoking to vaping. Those are 2 things that I've been doing over the last few months, right? And I haven't had an actual cigarette in a month now. And I'm, slowing down on vaping, where it's like, hey, I'm going to take that away as well. And I'm not going to be putting those harsh chemicals into my body, right? So it's taking baby steps. It doesn't have to be all at once. It doesn't have to be those grand gestures. Just do one thing.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think that's a good point that you make, because often I find this with my own clients, that when people are ready to affect some kind of change, whatever their reasoning behind it is, very often they're very motivated and they're like, okay, let's do this. I just want to change everything overnight. And while that's really gallant, a gallant idea that you're going to just change everything overnight, it's not practical. And I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, because really what's going to get you there, having that vision, yes, but taking those steps, one step at a time, will get you there. And each step that you take will affect a change. And I think that's another thing. Like, sometimes people think that, if they don't do everything all at once, it's not going to make a big enough difference. But what ends up happening is, you start out really gung-ho and then you peter out, and then you never get there because it's just not sustainable. So the key is to really, pick the area that you feel is going to have the most impact at that moment, whatever your situation is. And you start with one step at a time. Each step leads to a win, basically. And then that helps to build your motivation, which encourages you to take the next step and the next. And then as you build upon that, it's like you build yourself a foundation, and then you keep building up, the steps that take you up to the place that you really want to go. And it's all about consistency and staying committed to that process, for sure. And then the other thing too is, having the vision for it is huge, but also you need to set your expectation, and celebrate the smaller thing that you do. That's
just
huge.
Wrote that down. Just wrote it down.
Yeah, it's huge, because I think we forget that too. Like we'll do one little thing, and then it's like, well, if you're looking at the big picture, it's maybe over here, so you want to get over there, and then you forget, wow, this is really great where I am, because where was I before? And celebrating those things, I think, is really, really important.
Really just enjoying the journey. A lot of people don't realize it's not the end goal that you're trying to get to, right? It's enjoying the journey, whether it takes you, a year, whether it takes you 5 years, it's enjoying that process to get there, right? And celebrating those little wins, celebrating every day, right? Yes. And one of the reasons why doing everything all at once, and that really gallant effort, as you said that, and I was really like that, is you're destined to fail when you try to do everything at once, because it's like dieting. And what ends up happening with that is you're denying your true feelings. You're denying your wants. You're just denying your desires. You're not doing it for the right reasons at that point. And then you end up resenting and hating yourself along that process, because you're not happy, because you're not respecting yourself, you're not engaging with yourself, and you're just saying, no, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing this. No, we're not doing this. And that, when somebody else tells you no repeatedly, that wears you down.
Oh, sure.
It wears you down, right? And you start resenting that person. Like, why don't you ever support me? Why don't you ever love me? Or why don't you ever say yes to me? When they're constantly wearing you down, but you're doing that to yourself. And that's one of the reasons a lot of people's resolutions, a lot of people's, and I don't do New Year's resolutions ever. But a lot of those goals that we heart-centeredly put into place don't go through, because we're beating ourselves up during that process, right? If you want to start eating healthier and you want an Oreo, eat the effing Oreo. Right? Just eat the Oreo, and who cares? Eat Oreo. But if you say, oh, I'm gonna, we talked on Tuesday's episode about, that Oreo becoming a reward, and don't do it as a reward. Do it because you want it, and then that's it. You don't have to eat another one, and you don't have to eat 4 or 5 or a whole bag of Oreos and then hate yourself when you're done, because you've denied yourself Oreos. And now you're like, oh, I just totally wasted that. And how could I do that? And it's that guilt, right? Yeah. We need to take away a lot of the blame, shame, guilt, and judgment that we hold, not only for other people, but ourselves. Yeah. Right. And that's just us kind of second guessing ourselves. That's us just, going by somebody else's standards. When you're aligned, when you say, Melissa, I'm talking to myself, Melissa, you are going to do this. I told my husband the other day, I said, I don't care whether it's a year. I don't care whether it's 5 years from now. I am buying this item. That's the end of it. I will get that item, and I'm going to enjoy the effing process to get there. So you can tell I'm passionate. I'm trying not to swear. I get really cursy when I'm excited about something. But I don't care how long it takes me to get there. I'm going to make it happen, right? And if I have to fail at 50 different things along the way, then I'm going to fail at 50 different things. Those aren't the things that are right for me then. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that we've got to think about. What's right for me? How am I going to get there? And, today I'm going to ride the bike there. Oh, well, I didn't really like that. So tomorrow you say, oh, I'm going to ride my bike for the next week. First day of riding your bike, you're like, I really don't like that. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna walk, right? And then you walk and you find out that walking feels even better. It's okay to have those moments. Give yourself grace, give yourself forgiveness and understanding that it's going to take time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, sorry people, there's no silver bullet, and there really is no quick fix, regardless of what all the ads say. It's all about that whole consistency. And I think another important thing that what you mentioned about, enjoying the journey has a lot to do with being present in what you're doing at the moment. Because I think most of us, we spend our time regretting what's past or feeling unfulfilled about what hasn't happened yet. But there's a lot going on right now. And if you can be present in that, there's actually enjoyment in it. Like for me, when I made my switch, I had to change everything, obviously, when I was going to, tackle the diagnosis that I had in a completely different way. It required me to make commitment and make change. And it wasn't easy. And often I would be like, I don't know if I could do this. And my husband would say to me, don't worry about tomorrow. Just do what you're doing today. And that was so insightful that he said that to me, because he was right. I was like, yeah, I'm not really going to worry about, because it required me changing everything about the way I ate. And it was like, well, I'm not going to worry about this meal, that meal, that meal. I'm going to think about what I'm doing right now. And then as I did that, it also gave me the opportunity to experience the way I was feeling. And then I actually noticed the changes as they were happening in my body, physically and emotionally. Hope was born, and I had that vision, that for me, it was through prayer that I had even found this path. And then I just had that vision, and I would experience what I was doing, and I could actually feel the changes happening. And you know what? I think it had a lot to do with just being present in those moments. So that way, and then when you are present in those moments, you're not beating yourself up for something that happened yesterday. You're not feeling sad because it hasn't happened yet. And you're not missing the opportunity to say, hey, this was a really great day. Look what I did today,
No, absolutely. And if anybody watching or catching the replay, if you've got kids, you know that they age so quickly. So I want you to think about that journey that you've got, right? And let's say your goal is you've got a couple of kids, maybe twins, and your goal is they're 18, they've graduated, and they're getting out of the house. And that's your focal point, right? Is when they're 18, you're going to be so happy when they're 18, they've graduated, they're on to their own lives, and you're going to be happy. You're going to put yourself first. And then you get to that point and you're like,
now what?
Not only that, that's the empty nest syndrome, right? And that's because we don't put ourselves first. But when we get to that point, yeah, we're happy in the moment. And then all of a sudden we start questioning, where has the last 18 years gone? What have I done? Who am I? Where did that time go? And when you're so focused on the end result for all of us, I'm sorry to say, is death. That is our end result. There is, like, you've got to focus on the in between. What am I going to enjoy today? Right? What am I going to do today that I enjoy? I have to do something that I don't enjoy today. How am I going to counteract that with something that I do enjoy? Right? I'll go for a swim or sit in the hot tub, or, I'm going to go out and watch a movie with my kid, or whatever that looks like. Figure it out and do something every day that you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Enjoy the day.
Yep. Balance. Got to have balance for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. I think there was a study done about end of life nurse. I think it was somebody who worked in end of life department. And I think this person, I can't remember male or female, so I'm going to just say he, because that's what I'm leaning towards. But he would go around to all of his patients, and he would say, like, do you have any regrets, or tell me your stories? And, a lot of them were regrets of things they didn't do. It was regrets of not putting themselves first, or not, taking that job, or the regret of, not enjoying their kids and working so much, right? You don't want to be at your end of life. You don't want to be 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old going, I didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
I slaved, I paid for my family, I raised my family, and I'm dying. Like, you don't want to get to that point. Your life is yours. It's meant to be lived. It's meant to experience. And taking care of the car that's driving you throughout it. As Barbara said, your body is your car. It's that one of a kind car that you are never going to get again.
Absolutely.
Taking care of that along the process. It's never too early or it's never too late to start taking care of that car, that body that you've been gifted, and taking it from that first day to the last with honor, love, and joy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going?
I don't know. This has been an awesome, awesome conversation. And I think hopefully it helps people to think, just take a step back, think about it, and, there's no judgment, no guilt. If you decide that, hey, you know what, I think I've been missing out. And I always tell people that, don't wait, because it's like the best kept secret. Everybody thinks that, you're going to make a change and you're going to be miserable. You're not going to have any fun. You're not going to have anything good to eat. It's going to be the worst experience. But you know what? It's the best kept secret, because when you decide to make those changes, everything changes in your body. You feel amazing. Your body repairs. You feel amazing emotionally. And you get so much confidence about what you've done. And even if you're someone like me and you're going to be 60, you feel like you feel amazing and you can do anything. So don't wait. That's all I would have to say. You can definitely make the change. And whatever you do it with consistency, and it's going to make a huge difference. The payoff is incredible.
Yep, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Barbara. I really appreciated your time. And I've loved this conversation, as you can tell with my borderline cursing. You can tell it's a good episode when I start cursing. All right. For everybody watching, you can get in contact with Barbara. Her links are in the description of this episode. Go check her out. See about her journey of how she cured her breast cancer without any treatment, just by making changes in her daily life. So go and check that out. Follow her. If you want to get in touch with me about becoming a guest speaker, blogger, sponsor, or if you'd like to see a topic featured on the show, please reach out at justalivetv.com. If you want to follow me in my 7 businesses, you can follow me at melissacrechler.com and go check out what I've got going on. Our sponsor today, A Phoenix Identity. If you want to start making a change in your life and have that first part of that change be reconnecting with yourself, your emotion, your mental health, and all of that fun stuff. That is my mission at A Phoenix Identity. Go and set up a clarity session and let's get started. All right. Thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you again, Barbara, for joining and hosting this episode with me. And I will see all of you on the next episode.